Hi everyone, I'm Anthony Gallegos from IGN alongside David Brevik, President and CEO at Gazillion, developers of Marvel Heroes, which you're seeing right now. So Dave, how would you describe Marvel Heroes to someone who's never seen it before?
It's to kind of sum it up, it's an action RPG MMO, which is that's a lot of initials.
It is.
But it's basically kind of you can think of it as a cross between Diablo and a massive multiplayer game, but you're playing as the Marvel superheroes.
So right now we're playing as Miss Marvel.
Yes.
We're gathering up. So obviously, being an action RPG, I assume it's very loot driven.
Yeah, absolutely. We have lots of different things to collect, lots of different loot in the game, different rarities, crafting, all sorts of fun stuff that you can collect in the game.
How do you handle loot in a game like this where, there's kind of an iconic look to these characters?
Right. This was the most difficult thing for us to do. This is actually the 7th item system that we're on that we've tinkered with since the beginning of the project. And we're really happy with the way it's turning out. Part of the problem is that if you're playing as superheroes, especially with these guys have these iconic looks, we couldn't have every single piece of equipment change the way that they look. You couldn't have, oh, I'm going to pick up a shield or I'm going to pick up a helmet or something like that and have it change the way they look, because there are specific ways that their costumes are. So we've gone a different route. All the items that you collect do not have an impact on your look except for your costume slot. And your costume slot is a crafted item that the stats are randomly dropped, and then the look you get to determine. So you combine them together to create your costume, has random stats and a look that you get to control. And there are hundreds of costumes in the game that you can choose from.
Yeah, I imagine sort of handling loot too has got to be interesting as well, because it's something like other action RPGs like Diablo, right? Everyone's wielding a melee weapon, that sort of thing. There's like these standards that go across all characters, but in superhero lore, it's totally different, right? I mean, a Hulk doesn't wield a weapon unless he chooses to. Anything can be a weapon with the Hulk.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do a little of that. We have the ability for Hulk to like pick up a car or something and throw it. So there are environmental things to interact with. Oh, there goes Iron Man flying by. So there is loot that's appropriate for the characters. You will find enhancements to better gloves or better it is an RPG underneath, right? There are stats, you get better and better over time, you unlock powers, and so it is very much an action RPG kind of feel to it. But all the powers are appropriate to the superheroes and things that they can do and participate in that they normally have with their character.
Yeah, so can you give an example of like how a character changes over time? I guess how the progression sort of works.
Yeah, progression works very much like we've done it in the past, in games I've made in the past. And as you level up, you will get a point, or at least 1 point. We're debating how many points you get, but at least a point that you will put into a power tree that allows you to unlock new powers or level up current powers that you have. We also have power synergies that allow you to put points into other powers that may fuel or may have an impact on multiple powers when you put a point in that particular one.
So I think one of the things that people have kind of wondered about is how do you guys plan on monetizing Marvel Heroes?
Right. Well, the game itself is completely free.
Yeah.
You can play. You're going to be able to, when it comes out, just download it and play the entire game from beginning to end. You don't have to pay us a dime. You'll have characters you can choose from and go through the entire story and play the entire game for free. However, if you would like to, there are going to be things that you can buy, that you can microtrans, mainly centered around the ability to buy other characters that you might want to play. Characters will also be in the game in a way you can unlock other heroes, but you can, if you want a specific one and want it right now, that you'll have the option to buy it. And then there will be costumes that you can buy and change the way that you look as well, but those also are going to be in the game as well.
Sure. So I imagine, like you said, characters, aesthetic items, and then I imagine, very common thing these days is the time versus convenience sort of factor as well, right?
Yeah, there will be a little bit of that. There'll be some boosts and things like that we're contemplating. Those are the types of items that we'll be concentrating on.
How do you guys handle loot in Marvel Heroes? Is loot shared, or is it you see your own loot? Or
right, the loot itself is actually instanced for you. So all the loot that is on the ground is dropped right for you and tailored toward the character that you are playing.
Sure.
At any time in the game, you can actually switch which character you're playing. You have a roster of characters that you've unlocked. You can switch to a different one. It only takes a couple seconds to switch, and that can be interrupted, so you can't really do it in combat, like lead with Hulk and then switch to a different character in the middle of combat or something. So all the loot that you see that is dropped is on the ground for you. I was sick of playing with people that
just like have a faster click finger.
I'm the one that's killing everything, and they're the ones picking up everything. We won't name names, but so I think that we've solved that here by having all the loot specifically for you.
What's sort of the thinking behind the design of having the ability to switch between a roster of heroes? You know, not locking someone into that one hero.
Right. This is something new that we've never done before, and as far as I know, no other game has really done before, which is, you know, you don't have to go back to a load screen to
exactly. You're not progressing that one character the whole time.
Right. And so we have a variety of ways that you can progress basically multiple characters at the same time, and one way is by switching which character is currently active. You have kind of an account level status for your progression through the game, and then you can go back and play any character at any given time and go back through waypoints and stuff like that to access different part of the game. The characters will all start out, you know, at level 1. So as you change and you want to level multiple characters, you will have to you know, repeat different sections of the game. But just like other games I've done, it's very random levels, random layouts, random enemy placements, everything like that, random loot. So playing the game over and over again, you know, you'll encounter kind of a new experience every single time.
Sure. So I mean, you might do the same quest. You might be doing this the Eye of Shield or the Lost Patrol quest that you can see on the right side, but the layout of the dungeon is like procedurally generated each time.
Correct.
So I think another thing that, you know, people have wondered about with Marvel Heroes is how you'll handle, like, which character, like, how does a person choose a character when they start the game, if, you know, assuming they're starting it for free?
Well, there'll be a small list of characters that they can choose for free right off the bat, and so as they play the game, they may unlock other characters that they could switch to.
And I know that, you know, obviously Marvel has a wealth of heroes that you guys can work with, and I know you guys have announced quite a few already. Is that something, though, that, you know, post-release, you know, which obviously, you guys want to continue to develop, you know, the roster of heroes?
Absolutely. That you know, we've announced, I believe, 26 characters at this point. And in a lot of ways, you can think of each and every single one of the characters as its own character class. They play very differently from each other. They have very different powers from each other, just like they do in the comic books. And so we have basically announced 26 character classes at this point, which is a lot. They have full trees that you can actually customize the way that you play your Wolverine or Miss Marvel or whatever may be different than the way that other people play it. And so there's just a lot of customization in each one of these character classes, and we're really excited about that.
I mean, so obviously you've made other action RPGs in the past, and they've involved, you know, various forms of multiplayer and that sort of thing. What is it that you know, makes Marvel Heroes, you know, that earns it that MMO sort of moniker?
Right. Well, there's a couple things. First and foremost, we have town areas that are not instance, so there can be literally many heroes in a town type of area. Think of it like kind of like an Ogrimmar. And then as you go out into these zones, we're calling them public combat zones. And people will just be running around this area, just like you would finding in an MMO, where you would be running around some countryside, and there's people running around doing their own quests and doing their own thing. The same kind of thing's going to happen here. People that aren't necessarily in your party will be in these public zones running around fighting. And you'll run across other characters kind of doing their own thing. And in fact, we actually have cooperative events in these zones that allow people to kind of work together as a community to take down a boss, or, you know, there's different missions that kind of pop up that allow everybody to work together. And then we also have instanced areas which are just for you and your party.
I see. So, and the event sort of system that occurs, that's kind of you know, it's an event, right? It's random. It's not like at 3 o'clock this is going to happen. It's more like, you know, like, hey, this supervillain's acting up. We got to put him down. Who's going to help us out?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yes, exactly. So you can't. It's not really planned. Hey, there's Hulk. You know, he's not in our party. You can see him running around doing his own thing here. That's some other player. Who knows who he is?
So, you know, are you guys going to feature any sort of other classic MMO features as far as like guilds or?
Yes, there's a bunch of social features that go with an MMO that we would like to include in the game, and so in a lot of ways it's kind of a hybrid between the way that Diablo 2 and an MMO. We've got open public areas where people just kind of run around and participate together in quests and do those kind of things. But we also have, chat channels and friends lists and all the kind of social features that you would expect in an MMO.
For you, as someone who's designed, obviously, you've had a very extensive work in the action RPG space. Like for you, what did you feel was important to bring to make it, a distinctly like a Marvel game, a superhero game?
Right. Well, first and foremost, making sure that we have a really good story, and I'm really excited about the story that we have. It's being written by Brian Michael Bendis, who's a big,
obviously very well known in the comic world.
Yeah, and it's been a real pleasure working with him, and I think the story is great. It revolves around Doctor Doom, who's our main villain. Oh, actually, there is a public boss right there, Gorgon. He takes many people to take down. In fact, an entire party needs. You need about 10 people to participate to bring him down. Brian Michael Bendis is writing the story. It revolves around Doctor Doom, who has the Cosmic Cube, which is the Tesseract from the Avengers movies. And so you kind of open this story. The story is told through a series of motion comics. We have about an hour's worth of motion comics in the game. And it's Gorgon.
Oh man, yeah, you're not kidding. He's quite tough.
Yes, he is very tough, and he does a lunge. He also has this other power that turns people to stone. Let's see if he's going to use that or not. It takes a bunch of people to use it. And so we have these motion comics that are drawn by a variety of Marvel artists, that's voiced by people that have done Marvel voices in the past.
Oh yeah, there's the stone ability.
Yeah. And so we're really excited about that. And so it really feels like a Marvel story. That was first and foremost. Second is that the relationships that these characters have with one another, we really wanted to kind of bring that out. And that's one of the advantages of being able to play as the Marvel superheroes. We know the relationships between the different people. And so we can, as you're playing Miss Marvel, she might say something to other people that she runs by if she has some sort of relationship to them. And so there's lots of insider information that we can kind of express their relationships with each other, which is great. And then third is that their powers kind of make them feel like that character, right? And so that makes it an even deeper experience. You feel like Hawkeye when you're shooting his arrows. You feel like the Hulk as you're throwing cars and rampaging across the countryside. So that's what we'd like to do.
Yeah, I know a lot of MMOs traditionally have, group and like raid composition. When you're going into a dungeon, that's really important. But a lot of those, action RPGs rely on, stereotypical classes, right? There's the healer, there's the warrior,
Sure, yeah.
And
the holy trinity
exactly.
of
So I guess
tanking, DPS, and healing.
Exactly. So I guess I'm kind of curious, like, how do you handle that when you have, like, Marvel heroes? Do you start with them and be like, well, this character's kind of a tanky character, so...
Well, we have a little bit of that, but it's much more like... we didn't really have classes like that in Diablo 2, so
right.
That's not really what the design of the game is. First and foremost, it isn't like the Marvel universe is littered with heroes that go around healing people, so it really doesn't even make sense.
Right.
And so we wanted to kind of create everybody is responsible for their own health, and that kind of changed the gameplay altogether because people are responsible for themselves. And so we're going about it in a much different way than a traditional MMO would handle kind of its end game. But we have large bosses that take a large amount of people to take down. They have abilities, and you have to work together to achieve your goal of defeating the boss.
Right. It's just that you get to avoid that sort of trap where it's like, well, we need a healer.
We have to have this class, right?
Yeah.
We have to have this particular thing.
People can kind of compose the fantasy sort of super team group that they want.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. But then we also have a lot of characters in there, like, let's say, the Thing, for instance. He has a bunch of skills that are really very party and group based, because that's really appropriate for his character. He's a team kind of player, and so he has a whole tab of his powers are dedicated to teamwork and buffing up other players and things like that. So it really helps to have him along, but you don't need it in order to win.
Sure, I guess that kind of presents an interesting dynamic to like groups that go into dungeon then, because if they've done the dungeon before and like, oh, there's a boss fight coming up, like, well, it's okay, I'll play the thing so that I can give us the group buzz. You know, oh, I'll play this character because that'll be a great support for the thing. Having the ability to switch between characters kind of presents like an interesting dynamic for them to kind of think about group composition on the fly.
Yep.
So how big can groups kind of get and be in dungeons?
It's strictly going to be, we don't have a technical limit, really. I mean, eventually there'll be a technical limit, but but there is no real limit for us. It's going to be a gameplay balance thing for us more than anything. Right now we've got the number set at 5, but we can easily make that 10 or 20 or whatever we want. It just really depends on what's going to be the most fun.
So, I mean, for you, are there any features that you feel like you really have wanted people to understand? You know, I guess maybe something that you feel makes Marvel Heroes so unique and that maybe people haven't really had a chance to really understand yet?
Well, it's really hard to communicate a lot of these ideas until you actually play the game. Being able to run around these public combat zones and making it feel like an MMO, you're in this massive multiplayer game. You're in basically playing Diablo 2 with 25 other people in the same area running around kicking butt is a really unique experience. And working together to defeat Gorgon or whatever other kind of event happens to spawn up in the zone, it really gives the whole game a whole new flavor in this kind of action RPG. As well as the abilities of these heroes. For instance, Ms. Marvel can fly, and there are a bunch of abilities like that have never really been tried in games like this before. And I think that those are things that I'm most proud of. Being able to work with a giant IP, being able to, and that I know and love and have wanted to make this game for a very long time. So I'm very excited about that. Then being able to make it my favorite genre, action RPG, and then taking it kind of to the next level and making a massive multiplayer action RPG is all things that I'm very proud of.
So obviously you guys have entered into closed beta.
Yes.
But when will the people who are watching this video finally have the chance to jump in and try it for themselves?
Well, they can go to marvelheroes.com and sign up for the beta right now, and there's a chance that they can get in. But we don't actually have a release date yet. We will be announcing more in the future, but nothing's set in stone right now. We're still going through the beta, taking it one step at a time, learning things, kind of rounding out the beta.
Sure, and doing an actual beta where you take feedback and apply it to the game.
Exactly, and we have had that. We've had quite a bit of feedback from the community. We've tried to address a lot of the things that they've wanted the most, and I think that's been really helpful for everybody involved, and we really want to kind of take that seriously and make the best possible game that we can. And then when we get close, then we'll have a more definitive release date.
Cool. Well, that was a large overview of Marvel Heroes with one of the creators, David Brevik. For a lot more Marvel Heroes, you should always go to IGN.